Hello. 2 weekends ago, I disowned my family. I cut ties. I didn't disown them. I didn't own them to begin with. They're not mine. They don't belong to me. I don't belong to them. They were just the people that the universe decided to drop me in and make me part of their negative, toxic states of mind. And I can't do it anymore. I didn't cut them all off. Well, I mean, I really don't have a whole large family anymore, but I will keep in contact with my cousin. But I just stopped talking to my mother, my stepfather, my brother, and my sisters. And of course, my sister's two kids, my niece and nephew, who I love very much, are all part of that. And it's very unfortunate because I'm really going to miss my niece and nephew a lot. They're just kids. And it's not fair to them that they have to be mixed up in all of this. But in order to keep my mental sanity, it has to be the way it has to be. And my sister's not going to let me see them after I cut ties. I really kept my distance from my family for quite a while. I mean, I kept them at arm's length. I really didn't attend any family functions for quite a few years. There was the odd one I would attend, but even then, I'm not like them at all. I come from a long history of alcoholism, and every family function I go to, I don't drink. I mean, the odd time I will have a drink or maybe two drinks. Usually, if it's all of them there, I won't drink at all. It really depends on who I'm with, but more likely than not, I won't drink because I want to be able to get in my car and get the hell out of there when shit starts hitting the fan. So, um, I feel really bad. Like, I feel guilty about doing it, you know? I don't know if any of you watching this, if anybody's watching, I don't know. Hopefully somebody watches this. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself, which is okay too, because then I'm documenting and getting this stuff out of my system because I don't seek therapy. You're my therapy. So thank you if you're there listening and putting up with me. But in any case, I struggled for this past week. The past 2 weeks, I've been struggling. I'm coming around, but it's never an easy decision. So, yeah, if any of you cut ties with your family, I'd love to hear about it because I want to know. I'm sure it gets easier. I mean, like I said, I kind of had an arm's length distance between them, anyways. So, um, it's not that I don't miss them. I think I've built walls. But there's always that underlying tone or that sense that I get from people that, you can't cut your family off. They're your family, they're your blood. You can't turn your back on them, right? Wrong. I'm 51 years old. I am a grown ass woman. And if I need to do what I need to do for my mental health to feel better and start living the positive life and mindset that I want to live, then I have to. Sometimes there's collateral damage, and unfortunately, they're the collateral damage. Sometimes you have to do what is good and necessary for yourself to protect your sanity, your mental health, your sense of peace. My name is Shannon, and this is my channel, Positively Mad here. I'm striving to take a pause every day reflect and live a more positive life, being brought up in a very toxic environment in this very maddening world we live in. Today, I'm going to be talking about why I made the decision to cut ties with my family, the trauma, the PTSD, and my newfound self-diagnosis of autism and ADHD, and how that all ties in together. I do have some notes because my last two videos, I tried to go at it with nothing, and it didn't turn out so great. So I may be looking down from time to time to see what I've jotted down to refresh my memory. So thank you for joining me. So first, I'm going to talk about my decision to cut ties with my family. For so many years, I have been trying to reinvent myself, become a better person, maintain a more positive mindset. I grew up in a very toxic environment, a very negative environment. Of course, this resulted in me having a very negative outlook on life. And when you live a life full of negativity, nothing good ever happens. Negativity is attracted to negativity, in my opinion, in my life experience. I know that when you live in a negative mindset, you will attract negative people and negative things will continue to happen. So I've just been trying to find the positive in any negative situation. Uh, I have had the ability to look back on negative situations in my life and find the positive outcome. You know, we don't go through things in life without some sort of a lesson. So, that being said, I'm just trying to do me now, be a better role model for my own two children, be a better friend. Not that I have many friends, but I'm 51. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be on this earth, but I want to make the rest of my years as positive and memorable as possible. So I'm going to give you a basic breakdown of what life looked like for me up until this point, for some context so that you understand why I had to make this decision. So we'll start by the fact that I was conceived out of wedlock. It was a one-night stand, if you will, as far as my mom tells me anyways. So you guessed it, I do not know my father. I know who he is. My mom told me his first name many, many years ago. And I did do a ancestry DNA search back in, I want to say 2020 during COVID. And I found, of course, a lot of his family members, two of which are cousins of his that I got in contact with on Facebook. And we had several chats, neither of which have really been in contact with him. So at that point, they didn't anyway. So I'm not sure at this point whether or not they've reached out to him. I did get more information about him, about where he lives, things of that nature. I could have followed up and pursued it more, but I didn't, out of fear. Fear for so many reasons, which is a completely separate episode because that's a long topic all in itself. But just for context, I was born out of wedlock. I don't know my father. Don't know if he knows about me. My mother was only 19 when she had me. She was still living at home with her mother and her sister. They all worked full-time jobs. They struggled to pay the rent, pay bills, buy groceries. Plus, my aunt had a daughter of her own, my cousin at that time. I think she was We're about 3.5 years apart, so she was 3.5 when I was born, somewhere in and around there. My mother decided, though, that she was going to give me up for adoption. So I spent about 3 weeks in the custody of the CAS, which is the Children's Aid Society here in Canada. That's where you go when you're taken away from your parents. So she gave me up. Um, I was in their care for 3 weeks, and then my mom changed her mind. Uh, my mom and my aunt, or my mom and my grandmother, were out having lunch, doing some shopping at a store, and they happened to pass by some baby clothes, and my mother broke down in tears and decided that she needed to go get me. So that's what they did. They went and got me, and they brought me home. So now here I am back living with my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, and my cousin. Now, there's been many times in my life where, knowing this information, I had wished that my mother had just left me in the care of the CAS to be put up for adoption. I often wondered and imagined what my life might be like with parents who wanted a child and couldn't have one, and adopted me and loved me and taught me right from wrong and gave me the proper guidance. Although I'm also aware of the fact that it could have went in the complete opposite direction. I could have had a worse life. Who knows? You never know. But of course, my mind automatically went to, oh, I probably would have been rich, and maybe I would have been smarter. I'm sure I'd be a completely different person. Anyways, I know how horrible that might sound to some of you. I'm sure that there might be some of you out there who uh, do have adoptive parents and maybe went wondering your whole life what it was like, what it would be like to have not been put up for adoption, and know your parents and things of that nature. So I don't mean to sound heartless in any way, shape, or form. I'm just giving you some context for knowing that my mother did give me up at some point, and did bring me back, and just curious what my life would look like. So now I'm back home, as I said, going back, and my mother was in a relationship with a really, really horrible man who also happens to be my brother and my sister's father. She decided that she was going to pack us up and move us to California with him. When she told me the story, basically, he had gotten into trouble with some bikers here in Ontario, and he was running from them. I guess he stole from them. So off to California we went. Now, I was probably 3 at the time. I want to say I was 3. I really don't have much memory of living in California. I mean, I have a couple of really vague memories, um, other than the trauma that I experienced while living there. Anyways, so we lived there. I think we were there about 6 months, maybe. The bikers found him and started shooting up the house from the outside. My mother had to throw a fridge to the floor, duck us behind it so that, to protect us from bullets, which thankfully I don't remember that. Um, I don't know whether or not that contributes to any sort of trauma I have when I hear loud noises. But, anyways, I guess the cops came. Uh, the bikers that were there were arrested. My brother and sister's father was arrested. So back to Ontario, my mother and I came back to live with my grandmother and my aunt and my cousin. So I think we were only back with my grandmother for not too long because we then packed up and moved to BC with him again. And there is where my brother was conceived and born. So we lived in BC for, I'm not really sure how long we lived there, but I do remember a lot of really terrible things. I remember my mother getting beaten. I remember him putting me in the corner and making me stand there for, I mean, I was a little kid, so what seemed like hours could have really been a few minutes, but he was very mean to me. I wasn't his child, so he did not like me very much. So I was 3. I really shouldn't have seen the stuff that went on there. There was 2 more years of moving, abuse, police, violence, hundreds of memories that I have of the trauma that man has caused me until my mother decided to send me to live with my grandmother. Actually, he kicked me out. He kicked out a 5-year-old little girl onto the street. He threw my shit into plastic garbage bags, threw them on the lawn, and told my mother that I had to go. Why? I don't know. I was 5. I wasn't a bad kid. I was quiet. I was very quiet, probably because I lived in fear half my life, so I really didn't speak much. Luckily for me, my grandmother loved me fiercely. Um, I was really sad that I was going to be leaving my mother, but we lived in the same townhouse complex. Like my mom lived over here, we lived over there. So in my mind, I was like, oh, it's fine. Like it was more like I was just going to be visiting my I didn't really understand, I guess, like I didn't understand what it meant that I was going to be living with my grandmother. I mean, you don't understand a lot at 5. And I mean, looking back now at I was quite not 5. Uh, my words aren't coming to me right now. I just wasn't fully developed mentally to really get the concept behind everything that was happening around me. So my grandmother was very loving. I went and lived with her. I had a routine there. I didn't live in fear, but my grandmother did struggle mentally. She went through bouts of depression. She also struggled with alcoholism, but not on a daily basis. She more did like, um, she hit a period of depression and then she would binge drink for a couple of days. And, that wasn't fun for me either because she was quite moody. She seemed different. But now looking back on everything, just looking at my own life and where I am now with knowing that I'm highly possibly autistic and ADHD, and looking at my life with my grandmother, I'm pretty sure that she also had autism. I'm pretty sure my mother also has autism and my sister. ADHD runs in the family. There are people in my family that have ADHD, but several members are just diagnosed with depression, which now looking at it, I think that was just, that's what doctors did. They just paint everything with one brush and, oh, you're depressed. Here's some pills. I don't roll that way, so I do my research. And for years, I struggled trying to find what was going on with me. And this is where I've landed. This is what makes the most sense for me. Anyways, I'm off topic. We're going to go back to what I was talking about. I lived with my grandmother from the time I was 5 until the end of grade 9. She passed away. So about 9 years is the length of time that I lived with her. I watched the last probably 2 years of living with her. Um, she basically stayed in bed all day, every day, drank beer, and prayed to Jesus to take her life. Again, I was from grade 6 to grade 8. That's what I listened to. Now, she was in bed because she had a clot in her leg that needed to be surgically, they had to do something surgically to remove the clot or whatever it was they had to do. So she was waiting for an appointment. So basically, she couldn't stand for more than 5-minute periods at a time. So I was basically left to fend for myself. I had to do my own laundry. I had to make my own school lunches, cook my own meals. Now I'm in grade 6. I don't have any experience with any of this. No one ever taught me how to do any of these things. So I wasn't eating very well. I wasn't living very well. Um, my clothes were not washed frequently. So I ended up staying at my best friend's house quite a bit. Um, my grandmother didn't really argue with letting me do that. I think it was easier for her. I'm sure she didn't want me witnessing what she was going through, but I'm sure she also didn't want to send me back to my mom's house knowing what was going on there. So she let me stay at my friend's, and my friend's mom, I think she kind of had an idea of what was going on also. And she was a nurse and she worked a lot of nights, and my friend would be left on her own. So I think it was kind of nice for her to have her daughter have somebody with her. So it was a win-win, I guess, in her opinion, for me to be there. So my grandmother ended up passing away. She had the surgery and did not make it through the surgery. So now, guess what? I had to go back and live in the nightmare house. Now, my mother at this time is living with my now stepfather. She had been with him since I was probably 9, I want to say. So he basically raised my sisters and my brother, sort of. I mean, my brother was in and out of foster homes. Uh, the courts took my brother away from my mother because he was getting into a lot of trouble. Again, our our upbringing was not great, so it's really no fault of his own. Plus, he's his father's son, so there's that. Anyways, my my stepdad was a raging alcoholic, very abusive, both physically and verbally to my mother. Quite like my mother used to get beaten. Us kids used to see it. We got hit, um, and of course, yelled and screamed at. Um, there was constantly police there. So, definitely not a place that somebody who's in the ninth grade is going to thrive in. So now I was reliving the same nightmare that I had left when I was 5, only with a different person, and now with 3 siblings, or 2 siblings, and occasionally my brother. Sometimes my parents would go for days at a time, even sometimes weeks at a time, on party binges, and they would be gone. Like, couldn't find them. We'd be calling bars, we'd be calling the police, and we didn't know where they were. Now, sorry, for further clarity, we lived with his mother. It was his mother's house, and we all lived there. So this lady was in her 70s. So she wasn't really fit to raise 4 kids. So when my parents would take off on their drinking binges, guess who had to foot the bill for that? That would be me. I basically raised my sisters, making their lunches, getting them off to school, bathing them, picking out their clothes, doing their hair in the morning, getting their dinners ready. I mean, my stepfather's mother would cook dinners and things like that. And, she would yell and scream when people were being misbehaved and all of those things. But for the most part, it was me doing it. Now, I was doing this while trying to get myself ready and trying to be a 14-year-old. I really didn't have much of a social life when I was constantly taking care of my siblings. So I decided I think I was 15. I had a friend that I went to school with. She didn't have an upbringing like me by any means, but she didn't get along with her mother. And she decided that she didn't want to live at home. So she suggested we get a place together, get a basement apartment, apply for student welfare, and move out. So that's what we did. Now, that's a whole other issue. My mother did not like that at all because we had to talk to social workers. And so social workers got involved with my mother after they found out, and I told them all the things that had been going on. Mind you, they didn't take my siblings away, so she never really got in any kind of trouble. But I was ostracized for that. But again, at 15, I had to do what I had to do for my mental sanity. I had to get the fuck out of that house. So that's what I did. Now, my brother wasn't there. My brother would sometimes come home for weekends, but I felt really bad when I moved out, leaving my sisters. I felt really guilty because I was basically the only one um, really taking care of them and making sure that they were okay. And not being there and knowing that the abuse was still going to continue. Um, I felt like that was my responsibility, like that was my fault. I struggled with that for many years, feeling the guilt because of that. I mean, now I know, it wasn't my fault. Being 14, 15 years old, like you want safety, you want to feel safe. So like I said, I did what I had to do. So I moved out with my friend and continued going to school. Sometimes I did skip a lot, but we had this basement apartment, and I was 15, I was free. So we had parties, we were drinking, we were smoking weed. No real big trouble in the beginning, anyways. I mean, for the first few months there was no real big issues. We got along pretty good. And then she met this guy that had just gotten out of juvenile detention. And I guess his mother didn't want him coming home. So she offered him to come and stay with us. And she really didn't ask my permission, or she didn't say, let's talk about it, anything like that. Just kind of made the decision, told me. And I met him. I liked him, so I didn't really see an issue with it. And when he moved in, he the reason why he was in juvenile detention to begin with was because he used to break and enter into people's homes, steal cars, fights, all the things that bad boys do. And so, of course, he coached us on how to successfully break into houses and steal cars. So that's what I ended up getting myself involved in. And we were doing that for quite a while. I got really lucky, and I realize how lucky I got, um, and I'm truly sorry to anyone that it hurt in the past. I mean, I look back at the behavior and it's unfathomable. I'm disgusted with myself, but I was a teenager that grew up in a shitty house that, you know, anyways, not trying to make excuses. I got lucky. I never got caught by the police. We did our last, I think we did our last break and enter. We stole a couple cars, and one of the guys that was with us, he ended up getting pulled over by the police and he got caught. And he took the rap for all of it. So none of us got in trouble. Like, I mean, this guy went to jail for several years. I think he was 18 by that time. So, he got into trouble and he was in jail for quite a while. So, um, I realize, you know, through the years and just thinking about the choices I made, and like, I hope he's doing well in his life, anyways, given the past. But aside from that, I was skipping school all the time. And if I did go to school, I was skipping classes. I was not a good student. I did not get good marks. Again, knowing what I know now, pretty sure having ADHD, looking at my report cards, I mean, I don't know how they missed it, but here we are. So I skipped most of my classes because school was very difficult for me. I was very stressed out as a teenager. So this guy that we had living with us, he ended up, his girlfriend come started living with us, and not at first. I mean, at first she would just spend the night, spend 2 nights, then she'd be there for a few days, and then she just gradually moved in. And my friend, she decided that she didn't want them there anymore. So she told me that I had to tell them to leave. And I thought, well, why is that my responsibility? Like, you brought them. Why do I have to tell them to leave? And I actually got along with them at the time. So it didn't matter to me if they stayed. What a mistake. So she moved out. I ended up having to get a different place with them because we got kicked out of where we were. We weren't paying the rent. We ended up getting a 2 bedroom someplace else. And that was a fucking nightmare because these people were insane. I mean, I would hear him beating her, choking her in the shower, like just insanity, not to mention all the stuff they did to me. Um, Again, that's another episode because I could talk about that that's a huge part of trauma that I have as well. Anyways, I lived with them for, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 months, maybe, until my mom finally decided that she was going to come and help me pack up and move me back home to the fucking nightmare. But it was stay there or live on the streets or go home. And I'd rather the nightmare I know than the one that I don't. And the way he was treating his girlfriend, it was only a matter of time before he started to treat me that way. Who knows where it would have went had I stayed. So back home I went, and I was there until I was 19 years old. Back to the alcoholism, back to being a live-in babysitter, back to being the house cleaner, the scapegoat. So by grade 12, I didn't graduate with all of my friends. I failed quite a few courses, so I needed to take another year and continue my courses to graduate, which I decided was not for me. My friends were all leaving. I had other friends that were in the grades below me, but I didn't want to stay anymore. I had to make a plan and I had to get the fuck out of that house again. So I wanted to get a job and work full time and save up and get my own place. So that's what I did. I ended up working at a dry cleaners full time, and I worked for a grocery store part time on the evenings and weekends. I ended up saving up enough money to buy myself a car and get my own bachelor apartment. And um, that didn't work out for very long because I was irresponsible. I was with my first son's father at that time, and we just, I would work during the day and then we would hang out all night with friends. I wasn't coming home till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, getting up at 7 a.m. for work. I was late a lot, so of course I lost my job, couldn't pay my rent, got kicked out. And guess what? You know it. Guess where I had to go? Back to the shithole. Back to all of the abuse and the alcoholism and the police and my sisters, and back I went. So I did still work at the grocery store for a little bit, and then I believe, if I can recall correctly, I believe I ended up getting fired from that job because I missed a few shifts. I read my schedule wrong, whatever it was back then. I had a lot going on. There was so much going on that I think I just missed shifts and misread the calendar wrong, something to that effect. But I lost my job, so I ended up getting a job in the factory that my mom worked in, and I was there for quite a few years. But during that time, I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest son, and I was 22. And by the time I turned 24, I had my son while I lived at home. Had my son at, sorry, I got pregnant at 22, had him at 23, and then I moved out at 24. I ended up getting a townhouse with my brother, and we lived together for about 6 months. That didn't turn out so great. My brother, he's a loose cannon, he's got a temper, he's an alcoholic, blah, 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 same old family drama. So, moved out from there, got another place. So basically, from this point forward, um, I've never gone back home. I have, since the time I turned 24, moved out. I've lived in several places, but I've never moved back home. And I never would move back home. I would live in my car or in a ditch before I ever lived there again. Mind you, things are a lot different now, but I still would never live there. So from then, living in multiple different places that, again, they're all episodes of their own with different things that had gone on and taken place during my life during those times. Um, I had several different jobs during those times up until the last 13 years, where I have been permanently employed where I am now. Um, it's a good job, I guess. I mean, it was a good job until the prices of everything shot up, and now it's paycheck to paycheck. In any case, that's the basic context for my background. Now, here we are today. My brother is basically homeless. My twin sisters, my one sister, they're not my twins, they're their twins. One of the twins was diagnosed schizophrenic about a year and a half ago now, I want to say. She was doing very well in her life up until about her mid 20s, and then shit started going downhill. I knew since the time she was about 25 that she was schizophrenic. I had been telling my family. Everybody thought I like to research things. So my family calls me Dr. Shannon. So I told my family that I thought she had schizophrenia, and they thought that I just think I know it all, so I couldn't possibly be right. But lo and behold, I was right. Schizophrenia runs in my family also. My mother's cousin has schizophrenia. So she has schizophrenia. My other sister, her twin, she's been diagnosed with CPTSD, anxiety, and depression. And all three of them are alcoholics. And there has been some substance abuse problems in the past. Now, my last sister I just talked about, she is the one that has my niece and my nephew, and she is the one that I've had the most contact with over the last few years, well, 13 years, because that's how old my niece is, 13. Um, but basically, the only type of relationship I had with her is because of my niece and nephew. I really only kept in contact with her because of that, because otherwise, I probably would have cut my family off a long time ago. So, my sister with the kids, um, super toxic. Um, I cannot deal with her. Now, her diagnosis of depression, anxiety, CPTSD, again, we have stuff running in our family, mental health issues. I believe I'm autistic. I believe I have ADHD. And I'm pretty positive that there's something going on with her that is not, that it could be the contributing factor to why she has the depression and the anxiety. Yes, we did have trauma. We grew up in a shitty household, but there's so much more to it than that. Personality wise, traits that I see in her, in myself. Um, I definitely think it runs a lot deeper than just me. I also believe that her daughter, the 13-year-old, is autistic. I pegged that out. Now, I didn't know much about autism back then. I knew about autism and Asperger's. There was no spectrum at that time. So I believed that she had Asperger's. And I told my sister that when she was 2 years old. There was specific things that she was doing. Anyways, my sister thought that I was losing my mind, whatever. Um, and my nephew definitely has ADHD. I would put money on all of these predictions. So moving forward, um, my stepfather, he quit drinking several years ago. He can still be an asshole sometimes, but all of the other stuff stopped, like the abuse of my mother. I know that he is still very verbally, uh, I wouldn't say abusive, but he belittles her. I guess that is abuse, but he belittles her. Um, and I can't be around that. My mother did not quit drinking. So, my mother drank beer every day, smoked cigarettes, smoked weed, and also barely ate. I also believe my mother has an eating disorder. I told my mother that, and then when we get to it and she was in the hospital, she was told that. So my mother was maybe 95 pounds, alcoholic, and about a year ago, I want to say it was about a year ago, she fell ill. Um, she was complaining about stomach pain all the time, and then that led to her, she stopped drinking, and then she stopped eating, and she would not go to the doctor, she would not go to the hospital, she basically couldn't get out of bed, then she lost the ability to walk. It finally came down to a family decision to get her to the hospital, whether she wanted to go or not. So my stepdad talked her into it. She finally agreed. So off to the hospital she went, and we thought she was going to die. I mean, she was in really bad shape. Um, at the end of the day, she was in there for several months, and they ran so many tests trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And it came down to, they concluded that her years of alcohol abuse and smoking cigarettes and not eating, not living a healthy lifestyle, contributed to all the things leading up to her becoming ill. And now she has, I can't remember what it's called, but it causes nerve damage. So sometimes she can't feel her feet. In any case, she got better, was sent home, had healthcare workers coming, rehabilitation workers. She's walking again. She has a walker now. She's 70. So she's not too old, but she's up there, and she can walk with a walker, and she was able to get out and do dishes and, things like that. But she stayed on the patch to quit smoking, and she had stayed, abstinent from alcohol for quite a while. For quite a while. Uh, so that brings us to, we're getting there. We're getting there. My aunt, we lost my aunt in October, suddenly. My mom's sister. She passed away suddenly, and her celebration of life was 2 weekends ago. 2 weekends ago? 3 weekends ago. And um, so we were all there, mostly just the family and a few other people were at the celebration of life. I spent the majority, it was at my cousin's house, and my cousin's got a pool. I spent the majority of the day in the pool with the kids. Um, I really, I can only sit in short spurts and talk with my family. They all get under my skin. So I I would rather have just spent it in the pool with the kids. So that's what I did. So at one point, I was sitting at one of the tables with my mother, my mother's friend, my sister, my stepdad. My stepdad was having a conversation with somebody. I was talking. I look over, and my sister, my toxic sister, not the schizophrenic one, but my sister with the kids, is leaning over to my mother, putting a cigarette in her mouth. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Now, I'm known as the judgmental person in the family. I think I'm better than everybody, and I'm judgmental. But understand, from my side, my mother was in the hospital. We thought she was going to die, caused by drinking and smoking. So there she is. My sister's feeding her cigarettes. That's the second time that it happened. The first time was at my sister's birthday, but that was the second time. And my mother was drinking. So I said something like, what am I going to do? And they're telling me to be quiet because they're trying to hide it from my dad so he doesn't know. And I don't care. Like, what are you doing? And my sister says, well, you vape. I vape. I used to smoke, and then I quit smoking and I took up vaping to help me quit smoking. And now I'm working on quitting vaping. That doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is, my life choices have zero effect on my family. They don't know anything about my life. They don't know what I do. They don't know what I struggle with. They don't like I don't bring them into any part of my life that might contain any sort of drama. So whether I vape or not, that's just projecting as far as I'm concerned. Like, what does that have to do with the fact that you are giving our mother a cigarette knowing that that's what is killing her? Like, now I understand from my sister's perspective and the fact that she clearly is undiagnosed with whatever the fuck she's got going on, but in her mind, she loves her mother, so my mother wants to smoke, so she's going to help her because she loves her. But in the way I work is no, I'm not contributing to that. I love you and I don't want something bad to happen to you again. So no, sorry. You've been doing fine with the patch for the last 6, 7 months, whatever it's been. You can keep doing that. And as a matter of fact, I don't even vape around her. I also don't drink. I mean, not ever, but you know, I don't drink a lot. I went through a small period where I was drinking a lot about 10 years ago, but I smartened up. I had some self realizations and thought, oh, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to be doing this. So I got up and left the table, and I was like, I'm not taking part in this. So here we are today, and I came home and sat with it for a couple of days. And, let's go back for a minute, not to mention my mother also has an eating disorder that the hospital told her she had. So she wasn't eating. So, when she was getting better, she was eating well. She had gained like a lot of weight. Like for my mom, it was a lot of weight. Like I think she got up to like 115 pounds, which is amazing for her. I mean, I don't think she's ever weighed 115 pounds in her life. But here's my sister putting cigarettes in her mouth. Now she's drinking. When the food came out, she did what she used to do. Doesn't want to kill her buzz, so is not going to eat any food, right? So she didn't eat. And I was done. I was like, no, I'm not having anything to do with this. So, it was all said and done. The day came and went, came home, and I basically thought about it. It's all I could think about for 2 days. Um, just the stress of knowing that, is this where we're going back to now? My mom's going to start smoking again. She's going to start drinking. She's going to stop eating. The hospital visits are going to start again. The phone calls are going to start again. I just can't. Like, I don't want to be part of that anymore. Not to mention, I'm so done with the enabling that goes on in this family. Like each one of them, my sisters enable each other, my brother, my mother, like they all just continue this vicious cycle that they don't seem to learn from. And I can't wrap my mind around it. Like, and it causes me extreme anguish. So every time I get together with them, um, not to like I don't really get together with them often, but every time that I do, um I go into like what I can only assume now is a burnout. I used to think that it was depressive episodes, which it very well may could be, but knowing what I know now, with all the research and the videos I've been watching, I'm pretty sure I'm going into a burnout mode. So that's what happened. I came home and I entered burnout mode, and I'm in burnout mode still. Like I can't hang out with anyone. I don't want to talk on the phone. I can't reply to text messages. I haven't really been talking to my friends. I'm, turning down invitations to go out to karaoke, which I love to do. I just, and this is what my family causes me every time. Every time we get together, this happens. So, what do I do? Right? What, like, I don't know. I don't go to therapy. I've never spoken to a therapist. I don't have counseling. I don't have any of that. I don't have I mean, I have access to it, but I don't have the money. Who's got money for that shit? Not me. I mean, I have benefits that might cover 2 sessions, but what are 2 sessions going to do for me? So I'd never bothered. So all I can do is make the best decision for me. So that's what I decided to do, was that um, I was going to call it quits. I don't want to hear from them anymore. I don't want to be part of their lives. I don't want them to think about me. Like, I want them to pretend I don't exist. That's what I want. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the facts of how I feel. Maybe I will feel differently later on. I mean, I do feel bad, right? Like, I feel guilty, but what else am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live a peaceful life if these people don't fucking learn? They just do the same shit over and over and over. My sister, that's like 10 other episodes, which I'm probably not even going to do because that's her life. And you might hear tidbits here and there throughout some of my future episodes, where I'm talking about things that she's done in the past that have caused me severe mental anguish. But in any case, I didn't just walk away. I didn't just do the silent treatment and block all their numbers. I actually phoned my mother, and I told her. I called her, I broke down, I was crying, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to cut myself out of this family. Like, you guys caused me way too much stress. And of course, I didn't want to do that. Like, I didn't want to put that on my mom. I didn't want to stress her out. She's older. I don't want to stress her out to the point where she gets depressed or ill and ends up back in the hospital. I mean, that's not my intention. But I did want her to know why I was, leaving. I didn't want to just not answer her calls or her texts. Not that she really ever called me anyways or ever texted me, but um, I just wanted her to know. And she hung up on me. Yes, she did. She hung up on me. She said, I can't talk about this right now, and hung up. And then proceeded to call my sister, the toxic drama queen. And then my sister called my cousin. And then my cousin texted me and said, what's going on? Why don't you reconsider? You should just call your mom. You should just try to have a conversation with her. And I said, I'm not doing, like, no. I already tried to have a conversation with her and she hung up on me. So that we are where we are now. That's it. It's over. It's done. And then that sorry, my sister then proceeded to send me a text message and tell me I'm a selfish bitch, and shame on me. Shame on you. Shame on me. For years, I would respond to her and lash out, and the anger monster would come out of me. And I would say all the nasty things that she deserves for the way she lives her life and the way she treats her children. But I didn't. I ignored her message and then I blocked her because I can't move forward with my life and be a better person and maintain a positive mindset if I start off on the wrong foot. So I left it. I let it be. And then my stepdad texted me later on. This isn't good for your mother, he says. This is not the right decision. Maybe you should come over and sit down and have a discussion. She doesn't need this right now. Um, this is not the right way to do this. And I just responded with, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Um, I'm doing what's best for my own mental health. I've had enough. I'm 51. I've fucking had it. I can't do it anymore. It is exhausting putting up with these people. Doesn't mean I don't love them. I love my mom, regardless of the shitty way she made me feel my whole life growing up. And I love my sisters, even though my one sister is a straight up word that I cannot say on here. But I love my niece and nephew. And unfortunately, that's what's the hardest part of all of this is not going to be able to see them. My niece and I were like this. So I'm really going to miss her. So I've blocked their numbers now. And I think I cried for about 2 days. I still cry here and there. I'm pretty sensitive, is what I've been called my whole life growing up. I'm overly sensitive. Um, but I don't think that's what it is. Doesn't matter. I'm allowed to be emotional. It's an emotional decision. But I also feel relieved. I feel guilty. I feel bad, but I feel relieved. Like, does that mean that I'm not going to hear from them? Probably not. I'm sure that some way, shape, or form, whenever something happens, whenever they are going to need me or they feel like I need to know something, they'll go through my kids because my boys will still have contact with them, which is their choice. Um, they don't know everything about my past. They know some of it, but they don't know the extent. You don't know the extent. I'm giving you just the bare, we're just scratching the surface. Okay. But they'll get in contact with them to pass the messages along to me, I'm sure. So I know, back to the therapy thing, I know I need therapy. But alas, here I am talking to you. Perfect strangers. What could be better? I am getting out all the stuff that I need to get out. I typed it all out. So I feel like I'm helping myself by doing this. And maybe I'm helping you. Maybe I'm helping you in your choice to stop talking to your own family or a member of your family. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that, but if you've been contemplating it and you've been feeling like it's the right choice for you and it's the choice you need to make for your mental sanity, um, I say go for it. Um, I'm sure that there's plenty of reasons that are keeping you tied to them. Same as me, same as anybody, I'm sure, who decides to stop talking to their family. But At the end of the day, you got to do what's good for you. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments if you have cut ties with your family or if you're thinking about doing it. And how are you going to do it? How did you do it? I don't know if I did it the right way. I mean, I wasn't going to call every one of them and tell them, but I figured they'd get the message, which they clearly did. So um, I would really love it if you would like my video and subscribe to my channel because I have loads more videos. And I know I said that on my last video, which I don't even know if any of you saw my last video. I've only got 2 up so far. My plan is to take this channel pretty far. I have lots to talk about. I have multiple pages of things that I've been typing out, things I need to get off my chest for myself, for my own mental health help. And I would love to be some help to any of you. I am not a professional in any capacity. I am not qualified to give counseling, but I do think that a lot of my life choices that I've made in the last 15-ish or so years uh, to start becoming a better human being and being more positive, I think that I have a lot to give. So if that's something that you're interested in seeing going forward, they're not all going to be this terrible. Like I'm still new at this. I'm looking at a screen trying to get in all the points that I want to get in, and I've missed stuff and I've added stuff. So I guess that's how it goes. But I guess everybody gets better as they go. So hopefully I didn't bore you to death, and hopefully you didn't stumble on here going, why is this showing up on my feed? So hopefully this is something that's within the realm of what you're already looking at, and I'd love to hear from you. So on that note, I want to end this on a positive note. So this is me trying to be more positive. I'm trying the positivity jar with positive quotes that I have printed off. So we're going to pick one and see what it says. And they're from famous people, like they're famous quotes. So we're gonna see what it says. It is, for one to have complete satisfaction from flowers, you must have time to spend with them. That is a quote by Grace Kelly. So let me know if that resonates with you. I'm gonna ponder that one over and see how that resonates with me. And I will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for joining me.